And delighted to say that Alan Quinlan joins us in studio. Morning, Quinny.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Good. I see Gareth Brooks was down at training in Munster during the week.
I see that. A surprise visit.
The bootcut jeans were out, and they're never too far from Munster players down there, I'm sure. Anyway.
No, I would have liked to meet him myself.
Well, have you been at the gig?
No, I haven't actually. No, staying away from crowds.
No interest.
No.
Adrian's looking for tickets.
Yeah, I'm still on the search. I'm not. Put it out there. Loads of rugby to talk about. There was one headline that grabbed my attention this morning. It's in the back of the page of the Irish Independent. First, concerned by lack of communication over Ireland tour, and effectively his point. So this is like an emerging Ireland tour, and his point is that it's not so much. It doesn't feel so much like an emerging Ireland squad as in the next layer of players beneath that the touring party would New Zealand or a Six Nations squad. He's saying it's not that level that you would want to be looking at those players. He's saying it's a level at least one, if not two, below that. He's wondering if it's almost an emerging academy squad and basically questioning the value of it.
Yeah, I suppose he has some merits in what he's saying. I think if you asked any of the provinces, would they want, I think Leinster have 11, is it 10 from Munster, 8 from Ulster, and 5 or something from, I might have my numbers wrong, but there's a good few obviously from each of the provinces. Connachts have 5, but I'm sure none of them want to lose the players throughout that period. They're possibly missing two URC games, but we've always had this situation, Adrian, where we're kind of looking for something different in preparation for World Cups. Obviously, if you go through all the names, will there be players in that 35-man squad who'll get into Andy Farrell's squad next year? Well, maybe not. A few definitely have a chance. The ones that stick out are Robert Balakoon, Kieran Frawley, someone like Nathan Doak could really make a push. But Fez what he's saying is, yeah, for sure that a lot of these guys are not actually starting. If there was URC, a big URC game or knockout URC game or a European game, would many of these guys be starting? No, probably not.
It almost feels like they're building for a World Cup beyond the next one.
Well, you might, if you got a couple out of it, and we look back next year and say, well, it worked and it was part of the success. I think the big plus about going away on tour, and I've said this about the women's tour to Japan, there's huge benefits from being together as a group, learning about the dynamics of being an international player, preparation, the quality of training, the intensity, the calls, all that kind of stuff. I've always kind of been an advocate for younger players being brought into Six Nations squads or November squads to train with the best players and the guys who are on top of their game. So you don't have the same situation here where you've half and half, a lot of experience, and then you're bringing young players. But look, we'll wait and see. I think it probably, as I said, doesn't suit all the provinces, and but I don't know. I think, look, the communication, I think they probably would have been told this a while back that this was happening. It was kind of blind. We were all blindsided by a little bit. But if it brings the players on and it's beneficial, well, then so be it. But look, it's kind of hard to disagree with Fez in what he's saying, but I do think that, I just think of the World Cup all the time. We're thinking, how can we do things different? I came back from the World Cup in 19 and we were thinking, pick players abroad, maybe they come back with different ideas, do things a little bit differently. So this is a different type of tour. It's a unique situation, and there's a lot of players in that squad who I believe will be regular international players. Some of the young players who were on the 20s last year, I think that can be really beneficial for them. And you get a chance to work with the coaches really closely. So I think, the impact of Paul O'Connell with some of those forwards, and just seeing his approach, his mentality and stuff like that can only bring guys on. So maybe the provinces will get back a better player when they come back from this three-week tour. We're not really sure, when in the games they'll play. They're going to be very physical anyway, playing the games over there. But hopefully it's beneficial, but it is a little bit risky for sure.
Yeah, in the press conference we were asking Simon Easterby just about how you came about picking these players, and he said there was a lot of dialogue with the clubs and that some players that they might have picked they actually thought maybe will benefit better from being with their clubs at the
Playing
moment.
matches, yeah.
And then some of the players that we've picked, we need to see, are they okay in this situation? Are they able to step up to this level? So they want to see them in around the environment of the international, of the Ireland team.
Yeah, they wouldn't have completely blindsided the provincial coaches, because they all work together and communicate. So they wouldn't have just gone, well, we're taking this number of players, like it or lump it. I'd say there might have been a bit of horse trading for one or two guys and said, look, this guy really needs to go to the next level. Someone like Dermot Byrne, I don't want to be isolating players, but, he's a very exciting young player in Munster. He's still pretty young, but he hasn't got that taste of what it's like to get up to the next level and maybe... So I think looking at the names and going through the list, Adrian, they would have said, all these guys are potential internationals in the future. And I get what Fez is saying about, playing A games, but being away on tour, you can get a really close look at guys, their mentality, their body language, their attitude. Have they got leadership qualities to develop? So I think it'll be beneficial from that point of view. And I think the provinces will be fine. They all have big squads. It's not as if they're completely stripped of all their players. They'll still have decent teams for those matches while they're away. Simon
was asked as well, just about the November series. Would some of these players feature? And he said the plan is to look at players that they might feature, which I thought was maybe a little bit surprising. As you said, I thought it was maybe something for the future, but he said, yeah, maybe.
I think there's a handful in there, definitely, who could easily... Max Deegan has played before. He's a superb player. You could put him in against South Africa, Australia now, and you'd be confident that he can perform there. Alex Candellan from Munster again, played so well last year. It'll benefit him being in around that scene as well. Okay, it's different, and people can say, well, this is a totally different situation and playing a big test match. Joe McCarthy, Scott Penny has the ability. Cian Prendergast was on the New Zealand tour. Roman Salanoa in there, and this is probably one you're going to ask me about Munster. The tight head situation there. There's obviously a lot of promise with him, but he has to kind of take hold now, learn how to really kind of manage his body himself, and hopefully take that next step up. Incredibly powerful.
Are they a bit light in that department? Rory O'Connor was on during the week, because it's a good segue into the start of the URC obviously this weekend, and they're in action on Saturday afternoon. What, in terms of like Munster, his point was like that they obviously Fakatoa is a big sort of name recruitment or whatever, but that Roundtree wasn't as involved maybe as he might have liked in the recruitment to start off with, and that secondly they're very light in that front row area particularly.
Yeah, they are light in that front row area, and I think if you, and that's the concern. I think Connacht were in the market for a tight head. Munster would love to have brought in a top quality international tight head and go out with the checkbook and fill these gaps. I think the RFU were probably saying, look, Kenyon Knox, Roman Salanoa, let's see what they have this year, and if they don't make it, then but I think, obviously if you're coming up against, like in that Toulouse game where the scrum creaked and the front row was under so much pressure, and Toulouse are bringing on an international front row to replace the already international front row that started the game. It's difficult. It's difficult if you're trying to win European Cups.
And they've done nothing to really address that.
No, they probably haven't been allowed, Adrian, and that's the reality. So, you can criticise it, but I think there is, maybe if we see more of Kenyon Knox and Roman Salanoa, Stephen Archer is obviously there, and James French, maybe we just need to see more of them, and hopefully that they get a run of games. Roman Salanoa has had a lot of injuries. The potential is there. Kenyon Knox is a really good rugby player as well. You'll only find out more about these guys when they play games regularly, so they've got to get regular game time, I think, to see them. But of course it's an issue, and it's a challenge for them, and you can't, it's not like Premiership soccer. You can go out and just sign players and fill gaps and spend money, and I think they're restricted, and the RFU want to develop these two guys. They're both Irish qualified, so if you bring in an international overseas player, well, they get less games then. But then it begs the question, are they good enough? Are they good enough in that big game? Well, we'll find out more this year. I think they need a little bit of luck, Munster, with those two guys. They obviously need a little bit of luck with R.G. Snyman. If he comes back and plays regularly for him.
Be a huge boost.
Well, he's a game changer, isn't he? And if he plays regularly, he can make such a big impact. So on the balance of it, if you kind of go back five and back line, they look like they've a lot of good players, and if they change the way they play and use their skill set a little bit more and develop their skill set, well, they'll be thereabouts. But the reality is, the big crunch games will be a little bit short up front. We'll wait and see.
Will Munster fans give them a bit of slack this season, do you think, in the sense of obviously the changes in the coaching front and a bit of building going on there? Ronan was on earlier on and he was saying that there's a great sense of cohesion maybe in a way that there hasn't been previously for whatever reason, but given the backroom staff. So given that's happened and for whatever reason they haven't really brought in maybe a huge number of players, will Munster fans give them a bit of a free pass no matter what happens this season, or is there still an expectation of...
Well, I don't think you completely get a free pass, and I think Andy Kyriakou, Dennis Leamy, Mike Prendergast and Graham Rowntree and the rest of the coaches that are there will know there's pressure. There's pressure in that job, and there is expectation, and I think what Munster fans will want to see is a bit of bite, enthusiasm to try and play. Is that going to work every time? No, it's not. You have to be pragmatic. Sometimes, depending on the weather, if you get ahead in games, how you manage games and stuff like that. So I think, they want to see fight. They want to see ambition a little bit to try and play. And I said this during the week, the game that jumps out is that Connacht game last December up in the sports ground. That was the one that kind of was a pivotal kind of turning point for people and brought on a lot of frustration with, Munster passing the ball 45 times in the game. I know the conditions were dreadful, but Connacht should have won that game by a lot more, and I think that frustrates people. You contrast that to coming out of the Aviva after the Toulouse game, and Munster lost the game on penalties. But people were like, there's no one under any illusions, Adrian, that they're going to win a European Cup and that they should. I think people realise that, and that's where the patience will come in as regards that expectation. But they want to see some ambition, more ambition and more fight, and the players expressing themselves a little bit more. So the game plan under Johan Van Gran and Stephen Larkham, we could play that game back in 2006 because we had an international pack of forwards where we could tuck the ball up the jumper and just wear down the opposition. And that was the reality of it. We were probably more forward orientated then. Well, you had a 9 and 10 in strings and Rog who could just keep the ball in front of you. It was on a play to them a lot of the time. 2008 was different. We had Dougie Howlett, Maffey, Tupoki. We were able to play it differently, but you kind of have to cut your cloth according to your measure, and I think Munster were trying to play that a little bit forward orientated in the last couple of seasons and maybe just didn't have that killer punch. So I think they've got to find a different way, be more energetic in their play and dynamic, and trying to obviously retain the ball but play at a high intensity, and I think that'll be the challenge. So there does need to be patience. I think it's 11 years now since Munster have won a trophy, and I think after that win in 2011, that league win against Leinster in Thomond Park, I think, would you have kind of gone, well, Munster in 11 years' time we'll be chatting, and Munster won't have won a trophy since. Now they've won a couple of finals and they were close enough in Europe, so there does need to be patience, but I still think we need to see improvements as we go along.
Yeah. So, what's successful? Silverware at the end of the year or seeing improvement? Because I do agree as well, patience. Anytime any new head coach or new management come in to any team, you have to give it time to build, because I don't think it's even a 3-4 month thing. I think it's going to take quite a while. It's
different coaches, different voices, and I think what Prendy and Dennis Leamy will bring, and on the way they want to try and implement and improve the skill set. I think Munster have struggled to play at a high tempo, high intensity, and really execute when you get into multi-phase. I think that's what they will try and do. And we've seen glimpses of it. And I said this a few times. It's you know, you don't want to be kind of really over-critical of the previous regime, because I think the players have to take responsibility as well. At times, you know, you're out in the field and, you know, there's plenty of leaders there. What's a realistic return, Aisling? I think being in knockout rugby, I think you have to kind of be in the knockout stages of Europe and of in the URC, and then you kind of get in a position where if they get things right on the day and they have a bit of luck and they're not missing a couple of their big players, well, then they can have a rattle off a team, and you'd never know. You will never know if you're not there, and I think that's where they have to be. The South Africans coming into the URC has changed the dynamic, and just look at Connacht last year. They finished 11th, missing out in Europe, not getting into the playoffs. There was 3 South Africans in that group at the top, so they're going to be really. They've changed the dynamic of the league for the better, I think. So I think it makes it more exciting, the league this year. And you know, Leinster are obviously overwhelming favourites again, and rightly so. But you have to have a lot of depth in your squad to be fighting on both fronts. And you just look how good Leinster were last year, or look at the squad they have, and you know, they lost the final and a semi-final. On another day, they could have won both those trophies, you know.
We shouldn't forget that Munster are actually second favourites to win the thing as well. I think I've been overstating that aspect of it. Talk to us about Connacht, will you? Because they obviously have let go a few. They've brought in a few Leinster heads, Adam Byrne, Hawkshaw, Peter Dooley, and then the switches again, like in the back room with Andy Friend. Obviously, I don't know, is it a move up or whatever it is? But
director of rugby.
Yeah, I still think Andy Friend is going to be overseeing everything, and Peter Wilkins obviously with Ireland.
There's a bit of Rasmus about it almost.
Yeah, probably, and I think they just look at the dynamic of he probably wants to oversee everything and develop the coaches more with Mossy Lawler, and he's gone in as attack coach, and Collie Tucker do more with the forwards, Peter Wilkinson, and maybe just gives him a little bit of a chance to oversee training from a little bit of a distance. I'm sure he'll still be involved.
That's it. He said, I was talking to him during the week, and he spoke about it's knowing what your weapon is. And he said, I know what mine is. I know I'm good with players, man management, speaking to them. And he said he went around the whole coaching team and said, okay, you're better at attack. We need to put you there. And he said it was just seeing what we're all good at.
And to be honest, being a head coach, going out onto the field, you know, planning the sessions, reviewing the sessions, there's a lot to it, you know what I mean? So it probably gives him a little bit of a chance to kind of look at everything and have a bit more time to plan better and stuff like that. But I think the new players coming in, Peter Dooley, Josh Murphy, Adam Byrne, from Leinster, Hawkshaw as well, they'll definitely help and improve him. Seamus Hurley-Langton, it's a... I don't want to in any way be disrespectful, but you think must be some bit of Irish. The Seamus is spelled Shamus. Hurley-Langton, he's a New Zealander, and he's impressed them a lot. I think he played for Manawa too, and he's a loose forward. Brian Ralston, another Australian who played sevens as well, came from Western Force. So again, they're a little bit unknown. But you know, the way Connacht play, I think Connacht probably just need to manage games better and be kind of a bit more ruthless. I think the ambition that they show and the way they play the game, it's probably the flip side of what Munster need to do. You know, they need to be a little bit more pragmatic and control tempos in the games and stuff like that more. But you know, it was a disappointing season from last year. We know they can score tries. We know they're very dangerous when they get on the front foot. And it's a tough task for them first up going to Belfast to play Ulster on Saturday night. You know, Ulster probably finished the season strong, should have been in the URC final. When you think of what happened against the Stormers, that late score they conceded, they blew Munster away in that quarter final. So you know, that should be a cracker. But look, it's very early days. It's hard. You know, we won't have teams to later on, and it's a tricky one, but I think getting a bit of momentum at the start is really important for all the provinces.
As they always say, you can't win it after the first few rounds, but it can be slipping away.
You just think if you miss out in playoffs by a point or two and you go back to the first round or two, and you know.
Yeah.
What did you watch the Bledisloe yesterday?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So in a word, right call, wrong call at the end?
Hard call on Australia. Very hard call. Letter of the law. He did warn him a number of times. We've never seen it. I think Matthew Reynal should have said, if you don't hurry up, clearly, I'm going to give New Zealand a scrum. You know,
I think he had been kind of...
He had warned him a couple of times. He warned him, but he should have said it out loud that if you don't hurry up and take this kick, I'm going to give a scrum to New Zealand. And he did that. It was a big controversial call. Obviously, New Zealand went on to win the game. It was a crazy game, Adrian.
Mad.
Like, New Zealand were 31-13 up on 55, 60 minutes. And I'm thinking they're going to put 50 on Australia here. They were brilliant, New Zealand were. Australia's response, phenomenal. They come back. Nick White gets a penalty, 37-34.
Whiplashed that over with his cowboy legs. The commentator.
There was one incident. There was one incident in that game that was really disappointing, I think, and it was the Darcy Swain clear out on Quinn Tupaia. He should have got a red card for that. I think the TMO did alert Matthew Reynal. Actually, they got 2 yellow cards in that sequence, and that from that breakdown, Tom Wright was yellow carded, and then when they looked and the TMO called Matthew Reynal, and Darcy Swain comes in from the side and he kind of grabs Quinn Tupaia's knee and it bent inwards.
Cynical enough.
He's out for a long time. Did he deliberately go in to hurt a player and damage his knee? I don't think so. But it was really, really reckless. If you go anywhere near the lower limbs, and we talk a lot about protecting players with the high shots, just look at Dan Levy, what happened to him a number of years ago. His career over. If you go anywhere near the lower legs like that, it can be career ending. So he should have got a red card, and but it was a crazy match, a brilliant game to watch.
One of Foley's teammates was over his shoulder when you watch the replay, roaring at him for about 10 seconds before Reynal takes a decision to award the penalty, to boot it out over the line. That's where I started to lose sympathy, I have to say, for Australia. Now, having said that, if it was us on the other end of it, you'd be crying blue murder. You'd be saying, typical, going with the All Blacks. But it is a healthy and timely reminder to all of us that they ain't dead until they're dead, because I mean, even they still needed to go and win it. Like, incredible.
Yeah. The whistle has never gone with them, you know, and still have some issues. But they, you know, for 40, 50 minutes yesterday, they looked really, really dangerous, and so it was an incredible game.
Quinny, thanks a million for coming in. Enjoy the rugby over the weekend. Look forward to chatting.
We forgot to say just about Eddie Butler.
Yes.
I know we're under pressure time-wise, but that was devastating what happened to him. Lovely man.
So young.
You know, I met him in the circuit so many times over the years. He was a brilliant, brilliant commentator, and you know, it's a shocking kind of situation, and I was shocked when I heard it, as everyone in the rugby community. You know, he was a very, very popular man, Eddie Butler, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends, and particularly people in Welsh rugby as well.
Yeah, the voice of rugby, and well said.